Acharya, because we are standing here and our sense organs are allowing us to see only this side of the hill, we cannot see the other side. Similarly, perhaps there are many objects, many life forces that we are not available to because of our limited perspective in life. There are friends of mine, there are people I know who argue that ghosts, souls, subtle bodies, they cannot be seen by these naked eyes, but if you develop certain powers, you can for sure see them. And when I see this analogy, I mean, it makes logic, makes sense to me. What do you have to say?
See, you're talking about something material here, right? And you're talking about the laws of movement of light. When you say that you can look at only one side of the hill and not the other side, you are actually indirectly referring to the law that light moves in straight lines. That's all. So there is nothing mysterious here, right? You are referring to a fundamental characteristic of the material universe, right? And when it comes to the material, there are certain laws, and those laws are inviolable. Those laws pertain as much to the observed material as to the observer, right? In the sense that observer can observe only the material, and that observation takes place according to certain laws. So there is nothing really called paranormal observation or paranormal experience. The observer may have certain irregularities inside his mind, and that can lead to a distorted sense of perception. But that distortion has all to do with the observer, and that distortion tells nothing at all about the observed material or phenomena. For example, if I am under the influence of alcohol, and my sensory functions, brain functions are distorted a little, I might just perceive that these are 6 fingers here. That does not tell anything about my hand or the number of my fingers. If anything, it tells about the state of my brain. Similarly, there is nothing called paranormal activity in the external world. That which you call as the external world follows the law of Prakriti, which physics so honestly and diligently seeks to translate into a mathematical language. Those laws are inviolable, there are no exceptions there. If somebody is perceiving something that violates the laws of physics, which are the laws of Prakriti, then that experience, I am repeating this, then that experience has something to do with the experiencer's own brain. The brain has deviated from its normal functioning. And if the brain has deviated from its normal functioning, that does not really mean that the brain has ascended to a higher state. It merely means that the brain is now delusional. These are 6 fingers. That kind of delusion.
Would you say that, of course, I think you would say yes to this. that human system, our brain, body, mind are limited, our perspectives are limited. We cannot perceive everything at once. Would you agree with this?
Not in the sense you are putting it. Our sensory perceptions are limited in the sense that when I'm looking this side, I cannot look at that side.
Right.
But that does not mean that there is something in the universe that is material and yet cannot be experienced. Or that there is something in the material that is in the universe that is not material and yet can be experienced.
Acharya ji, our ability to see only till a particular point in distance is because of the powers that these instruments have.
It is because of physical phenomena. If you have a perfectly clear path, you can look till infinity.
With which instrument?
With your eyes, with these very eyes. What happens? What happens on clear nights? How are you able to look at those stars which are otherwise not available to you? If there is nothing obstructing the path of light, you can look practically till infinity. So when you say, our senses are limited, instead of this being an exercise in humility, this becomes an exercise in self-deception. Our eyes are not limited when it comes to looking at material objects. If there is some material object to be seen, the eyes can look at it. Even if it is, at an infinite distance away from you, provided nothing is obstructing the path.
So seeing, hearing or whatever is being experienced is based on certain conditions. What I'm trying to arrive at is, if those conditions are changed and yogic practices claim that they can radically transform the instruments within, the instruments which perceive the world, then perhaps all that is not
that will require a physical change in the constitution of the eyes themselves.
And what, Acharya ji, makes you so sure that yoga cannot do that?
Because that will require a change in the DNA itself. You'll no more be a human being. The very DNA that determines the color of your skin also determines the constitution of these balls of flesh called eyes. If your eyes are to change, everything about you will change.
There are yogis who claim that their third eye has been awakened and they can see things that
if somebody has a third eye made of flesh and blood, then he cannot have any mechanism in the body that resembles that of a normal human being.
So the third eye between the two eyes of the Shiva, they are just symbolic?
Even mythology does not say that the third eye is a real thing in flesh and blood. It is obviously symbolic. It's a great symbol.
But there is a mark on the forehead of Shiva, we see that.
So Shiva is not a person. The third eye does not really belong to a person. Shiva is a great symbol.
What does it mean that Shiva opened his third eye?
It means that as a human being, you must strive to take your consciousness beyond attachment to material. The eyes can look only at material. You have to go beyond material, which means you have to go beyond the stuff that these two eyes look at. Symbolically, you have to go beyond these two eyes. Now, is there a third eye beyond these two eyes? Not really. It's just the beyondness that matters. These two eyes have to be transcended. In other words, the material world that these two eyes look at has to be transcended. Transcended in the sense that you look at something and you fall for it. Right. There is greed, attraction, possessiveness. You have to transcend that.
So you do agree that there are some people who are able to transcend the materiality.
Obviously,
that this system limits us to.
Obviously, and that's a very abstract thing. It's got to do with the ego. The ego is no more attached to gold, to money, to possessions, to prestige. That's what it symbolizes.
What is your response to those who get back to you and say that, Acharya ji, perhaps these paranormal forces have not come into your own personal experience, and that's why you're theoretically denouncing them. Perhaps it is you who have not experienced these, but they can be experienced by other people who are available to them.
If I say there is somebody whose body temperature is 1000 degrees centigrade, what would you say?
I would say that's not a human being. Maybe that's something else.
No, I'm saying there is somebody whose body temperature is 1000 degrees centigrade. What would you say?
Some fictional character.
You're saying it's fiction, it's not real. Yes. And I'll say, maybe you have not experienced it, maybe your body temperature never rose to 1000 degrees. But just because you haven't experienced it, how does it prove that somebody cannot have 1000 degrees temperature?
But science has proven that this body cannot bear 1000 degrees.
Exactly. So
but
it is
but
not
science has not proven that these souls don't exist.
Wait. So let's stay with the analogy. So it's then not about that special person. It's about this body.
Right.
This body is 70% water.
Right.
The water cannot survive as water in its liquid state beyond 100 degrees.
100 degrees, yes.
Right?
Yes.
This skin cannot tolerate 1000 degrees.
Yes.
So it's not about that person. You might say, I have not met that person.
Right.
I know nothing about that person.
Okay.
But I know myself.
Right.
And knowing myself, I know that that person is lying.
It's about the species that person.
It's about the species that person belongs to. If that person is human,
certain things are just not.
certain things are just ruled out.
Okay.
So I am human and I know my body and I know my constitution and I know my skin.
Makes sense.
So I know that no skin can survive 1000 degrees centigrade. Similarly, if somebody says that, a quadratic equation can have 5 roots. What would you say? You would say such a thing is impossible by the very definition of a quadratic equation. It is defined to have only 2 roots. It cannot have 5 roots. You are talking nonsense.
But what defines a human being is its inability to be defined. I mean, we can
why?
fly as much as possible.
No. That's imagination.
limit.
That's imagination. Wait. When you're talking of ghosts, you're not talking of something imaginary and toto. You're talking of something that enters the human body, and the human body is real. You may not know the ghost, right? But you know the human body. And here you're talking of something in relation to the human body. You're saying the ghost is something that enters the human body, let's say. The ghost is something that is visible to the human body.
Yes, many see them.
Right.
Many see them.
But the human body can look only at material. These eyes can perceive only the material. These eyes can perceive only something that reflects light. You cannot look at something unless it is a reflector of light. And for something to reflect light, it needs to be material. How are you able to look at this tree or this twig or that hillside or anything? It is because they are opaque to light. They are reflecting light back to you, right? And only material reflects back light. And if something is material, then it is a part of this normal universe. Why are you calling it paranormal? There is nothing paranormal there. Similarly, you know this body. Only material can enter this body and only material can leave this body because this body is material. Therefore, the thing called ghost is excluded by definition.
So either if it is paranormal, then you cannot see it. If you can see it, it is material.
Then that paranormality has to do with one's own mental inability or insanity. There is nothing called paranormal in the external objective world.
But Acharya, there are documentations. People have seen them.
You can document anything because it pleases the ego. Finally, the good-for-nothing fellow had something special happening in his life. Why won't he want to document it? There is nothing at all extraordinary otherwise in his life. So you can have detailed imaginations. And imagination can be more detailed than fact itself. Because nothing stops you from going into imaginary details. And the imagination need not be deliberately mischievous. You see, a large part of our self is unknown to us. We live in such illusion about ourselves, such ignorance about ourselves. We do not know what lies in the subconscious. So, it is those demons in the subconscious that present themselves to us in front of our eyes. It's not that the thing is really standing out there somewhere. It's something from in here that's getting projected out there.
There are individuals, there are school of thoughts that say that in general, normally, this mechanism can only perceive 3 dimensions. But if certain practices, mainly yogic practices, are followed, this body can also be made potent to perceive 4th and 5th dimension, and so on.
One basic thing. One thing can perceive. Wait, one thing can perceive another thing only in its own dimension. For you to perceive the 4th dimension, your 3-dimensional body will have to fall apart. So you are dead.
No, I didn't get it.
Something in the X dimension alone cannot perceive the Y dimension. Something in the XY plane cannot perceive the Z axis. Something in 3 dimensions cannot perceive the 4th dimension. If you claim that you are perceiving the 4th dimension, then you cannot be limited to the 3 dimensions. But here you are standing as a body and yet talking so big about the 4th and the 5th and the nth dimensions, which is obviously false.
If it is so obvious, I mean, there are comments, there are people who come to me and say that what Acharya ji is saying about supernatural forces is logically understood. But what about my own experience? I have
You can experience anything. You are the experiencer. All your life, your experiences have fooled you, right? When you looked at that woman, you experienced pure love. Next year, you were filing for divorce. What happened to that experience? Don't you know how your experience fools you all the time?
But people see like figures standing, 7 feet figures standing.
Don't you see the most beautiful woman of the world in the world standing in front of you in the form of your girlfriend? Don't you call her the most beautiful woman in the world? That's the capacity of your seeing. We are people who live in self-delusion all the time. Even when we are looking at normal people, we are actually imagining. We are seeing ghosts all the time. What is a ghost? That which does not exist yet appears to exist. Even your girlfriend is a ghost actually. Because the way you look at her, she really is not. She is an object of your imagination. And that becomes clear when you develop an intimacy. And therefore there is friction and all those things. Wait, had you told me, or rather asked me, Acharya ji, give me some word that does not exist in the dictionary. Come on. Some word that does not exist in the Hindi or English dictionary, some random word.
Kuchipoklu.
Kuchipoklu. You would have come to me and said, Acharya ji, please speak on Kuchipoklu. What would be my response? I do not know. I do not know. I do not know. And if you really find this subject so important, I'll go back and probably study and come back. And then I'll humbly say I do not know, because Kuchipoklu is not known to me. But when you say, please speak on ghosts, then you are not coming to me with something that is totally unknown to me. Why? Ghosts are not unknown to me, not because I have seen ghosts, but because you define ghosts with respect to this body and the universe. You say ghosts are something that leaps out of this body upon death. And then you say ghosts exist in this spatial world, right? Now I do not know about ghosts because they don't exist actually. But still, let's keep that aside. I know about this body at least, right? And I know about this universe that surrounds us. I know about the properties of the universe. I know what material is. I know how material this body is. And therefore, when you will say something so outrageous with respect to this body, I have sufficient ground to deny that. Had you just said, do ghosts exist? Without giving me a definition of ghosts, then I would have said, I don't know. But according to you, a ghost is something, that can enter a body, that can leave a body, and then that's something that can dance around
You're
in
saying
thin
that
air.
if you are asked, can I see a ghost? Then you would surely respond, because you cannot
Yes.
see a ghost.
You cannot see a ghost. You cannot see. If you can see a ghost, then you should also be able to shoot a ghost. Why? Because to see a thing, the thing has to be material. And if the thing is material, then it will be vulnerable to a bullet. But then, in all your paranormal fiction, no ghost is ever vulnerable to a bullet.
Right.
But a material thing has to be vulnerable to bullet.
Right.
Then you can say, but then air is materiality and bullet does not harm air. Fine. But then air can be controlled through certain other material and physical processes. So if ghost is material, then it will respond to all the laws of material physics. Why are you calling it paranormal? It is a very normal thing then.
What do you have to say about movies showing ghosts disappearance into mirrors? That ghosts cannot be seen in mirrors. Like certain
The way you see something in the mirror is not very different from the way you look at something directly. If I'm looking at you directly right now, what is happening? The sun is there, up there. The rays are traveling. They are hitting your cheek and entering my eye. Right? And that's how I'm perceiving your physical presence. And how do I look at you, let's say in the mirror? Alternately, what can happen is I can hold a mirror here. The ray comes from there, hits your body, hits the mirror, and then comes to me. So it's not very difficult, not very different. If you can look at something directly, that's very much similar to looking at something in the mirror.
If it is such an obvious thing, because throughout the course of this discussion, it's been 15-20 minutes, I'm getting confused because I had come with a certain understanding and motive. If it is so obvious to you, and when I look at you saying things, with the way you say things, I get convinced, or I try to understand and I start understanding.
Don't get convinced too easily.
No, it's not.
I'm just offering stuff for you to think on, meditate on, and come to an understanding that is purely individual.
Now the question that's coming to me is, if it is so obvious that all this is nonsense, why are we talking about it in 2020? Why is it an issue?
Talking about in 2020 because the fundamental darkness in man's mind exists as much in 2020 as it existed in 2020 BC. Because we are spiritually away from the truth, therefore the mind is afraid. Only truth can dispel fear. And that timeless, eternal, impersonal truth is something we do not strive for in our life. And when that truth is not there, when the spiritual truth is not there, then the mind is just a home to all kinds of darknesses. And when those darknesses are there, then you're not sure about anything, let alone ghosts. Neither can you confirm anything with conviction, nor can you deny, refute anything with absolute certainty. Therefore, when somebody comes to you and says, ghosts, you just do not have the conviction to say no, because you don't have conviction in anything in your life. About everything in your life, you are anyway uncertain. Think of it. Is the common man absolutely certain about anything in his life? No. So how can he be absolutely certain that ghosts don't exist? And if ghosts indeed do exist, and this man denies them, then ghosts are said to be of a vindictive nature, and who knows what harm may come upon you. Why expose oneself to that kind of harm? Why run that risk? So simply concede. Admit that, well, probably ghosts do exist. After all, so much documentation is there, and all the great gurus are talking of ghosts, and so therefore the ghosts, why run the risk? Risk only.
The biographies, one after the other, where so-called yogis are narrating stories where they have confronted people who can fly in air, who can vanish from one point and appear at another.
It's a very easy and proven way to dominate the gullible mind.
And Acharya as a seeker of truth, somebody who's trying to read scriptures and understand things about life, it gets even more difficult for one to disbelieve in such things when yogis and gurus are speaking such stuff and from their own life.
The first thing is to not to take any guru at face value. How do you know, first of all, that he is fit to be called a guru? Social sanction is what makes him a guru. It's a bad state of affairs. So you have to be very careful in letting someone become your guru. The approach has to be one of negation. You keep negating, you don't admit anybody. Nobody deserves to be a guru. And when somebody is so powerful with the truth, so honest with the truth, so innocent with the truth, that he is actually able to bulldoze his way, ram his way into your consciousness in spite of all your negation, only then that person deserves to be a guru. That person, that book, or whatever. It could be a dead person, he could be a dead, he, she, anyone. So, your job is not to be indiscreetly available to all kinds of charlatans. That's not your job. Your job is to safeguard yourself, because the entire world is too eager to become a guru to you. Your job is to keep refuting, keep negating. And if your refusal is genuine, if there is honesty in your negation, then the real one would barge into your consciousness in spite of your resistance. Only such a person, living or dead, real or fictitious, doesn't matter, deserves to be a guru. Otherwise, no. You see, the ego wants to dominate, and if I say something to you that is verifiable, falsifiable, then it is not very easy to dominate you. Let's say I want to dominate you, and I say, you're just 5 feet 10, I'm 6 feet 2. In a bid to dominate you, I'm making such a claim. You'll be able to verify it with your own eyes, or maybe with an inchy tape, right? And very quickly you will measure me up and say, dude, you're not even 5'10". So, that won't work, because you're talking about something material. Height is something material. So you cannot brag too much on that. You'll be caught. You'll be falsified. But the ego wants to dominate. So how does it achieve that? If you say that you're superior to me, because, that won't work. So a better way to dominate me is, I have extraordinary powers, I have paranormal capabilities, I see ghosts, I control ghosts, all those things. Now, the thing with these things is, they cannot be falsified, because your fundamental thing is, they belong to my personal experience. And at the same time, you are saying that your personal experience cannot be mine. I just have to blindly believe you on what you are saying. You write a book claiming you did such a thing with ghosts and that thing and that thing and that thing. And I'm supposed to
believe it
because
I cannot.
I'm supposed to believe it because you're a big guru. Because you sit with celebrities. Right? So I'm supposed to believe it. No, this is a pretty shady state of affairs, obviously.
Right. And those who read such books and are made to feel that they cannot have such experiences, they are often also given a path. So
No, they are first of all told that such experiences are real. Secondly, they are told that there is that one special guru who is having all these exotic experiences and you are missing out on them. And then he is told that you too can have those exotic experiences if you follow the guru. So that's how the guru gains in dominance.
pathetic. Last query to you, Acharya ji. Because before coming to you to discuss this, I was slightly embarrassed if I should be asking this question, because prima facie is anti-science. I mean, one should not be asking this to a teacher. Should just go and read in a science. If there's a list of 5 things that you would recommend today's mankind, today's society to practice. For example, education. These beliefs are seen more in rural areas where education rate is very low.
No, not at all. Not at all.
They say that in
Rural people,
villages,
uneducated people have gurus who speak in the rural languages, rural dialects. Huh? Educated people have English-speaking gurus.
and both are speaking nonsense. you're
And
saying.
both are uttering, an unbelievable amount of nonsense.
If one has to guard oneself in today's society against, let's say, superstition around ghosts, let's be very specific, what are the 4-5 practices or ways or sadhana that you would recommend?
Why does it require sadhana to not to believe in ghosts? It only requires a sane mind. I mean, my question is, how can somebody bring himself to believe in such things? That's what embarrasses me. I don't even wonder about it. Even wondering about it makes me embarrassed about mankind as a whole. Do we belong to this species that believes in ghosts?
Few days ago, Acharya, I read a Facebook post where a Harvard alumni had written a review about this famous book where the guru has talked about his own paranormal experiences, and that Harvard alumni was really praising the book. So one thinks like he's from Harvard. He's
Frankly speaking, such people should be in jail. They are pushing the human mind, our collective mind, back into dark ages of superstition. Spreading superstition is obviously a crime. Any person who is writing a book that abets superstition deserves to be behind the bars. He should be in the jail. Instead, it's indeed tragic that such people are often felicitated with state honors and awards and public veneration.
Is it something special about you that these things are so obvious to, or are there things lacking in people like me and others who are not able to, I mean, so obviously see that no? Why does it not strike us that, come on, he's lying?
I don't think of it as something special. It's just that like a human being, like an innocent person, I want to understand. I seek to understand. I just don't want to accept. It's not that I'm a compulsive rebel or something. It's just that I have that instinct to question, seek, understand, because I want that inner satisfaction. Unless I know that the issue is really settled, I'm going to remain dissatisfied, as does everybody. You are no different than me. In that sense, we are all one. Don't we want the truth? Who is satisfied with falseness? That's all that I do. So I'm sorry I won't be able to give you 4 or 5 points to guard you against falseness and delusion and superstition and ghosts, I do not know of any 4-5 step process. Simple, basic, innocent honesty is enough. Why must you be so afraid that you can't even question? Is there a need? See how nicely the sun sets upon our discussion. And everything that you're seeing there follows the laws of physics, you know. There's nothing paranormal there at all. But it's beautiful, and that's the thing about truth. Nothing paranormal there, yet great beauty. Just stand here and allow yourself to be immersed in meditativeness. This is spirituality, not all the nonsense about ghosts. Be free of fear, prejudice, attachment, aggression, avarice. Why must you keep burning inside? Why must you keep trembling inside? The hills are there, the sun is there. It's upon the lake that we stand. And they are very, very normal. Spirituality is the movement of the ego into normalcy. Normalcy not in the sense of what the crowd does. Normalcy in the sense of sahajata, ease. Spirituality is not about stuff paranormal. Spirituality is about becoming more and more normal, more and more ordinary each passing day. With paranormal concerns, what you are seeking is something extraordinary, and that's what the ego does. Doesn't it always want something extraordinary? So you have today seen something extraordinary, ghosts, and the ego is so satisfied. It got us so excited. I'm special, I saw a ghost. Ease, ease, ease. That's what the ego needs. Not exotica.